Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. This is Jesse, the Marketing Director at Fade Business Systems Group. We are going to start our webinar shortly. Just waiting about one more minute to let people finish installing the GoToWebinar plugin and sign in and stuff. That can take a little bit of time. So we'll start shortly, so just sit tight and we'll be right with you. Thanks. All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Again, this is Jesse, the Marketing Director at Fade Business Systems Group. We're really excited you have decided to attend our webinar today. Today we are doing a webinar with our partner, Acton. We have Karen Casey. She's the Senior Manager of Channel Enablement and Marketing at Acton. She's going to be taking us through our presentation, specifically around inbound and outbound marketing. So throughout today's presentation, if you have any questions you'd like to ask, feel free to drop it in the chat within the GoToWebinar plugin, and I'll monitor those and get them over to Karen as we go. So before we start, just quickly gonna tell you a little bit about Fade Business Systems Group. Just take a minute. On the next slide, you'll see that we are a Acton consulting partner. We've been working with Acton for a long time. It's the only marketing automation platform that we support. We're also known in the Sugar CRM community as Sugar's Global Reseller of the Year in 2018. And we have roughly over 400 clients, and we specialize in a lot of vertical markets and all kinds of organizations based in Los Angeles, but we've got offices throughout the United States. And we specialize in CRM and marketing automation, implementation and installation, and we've built all kinds of integrations between Sugar CRM and Acton is a solution that we selected on the marketing automation side just due to the tight integration with Sugar and its enhancement for our clients, and using Sugar as a marketing tool. So that's my spiel, Karen. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I'm going to pass it over to you to take us through today's presentation.
Great, thanks, Jesse. Really appreciate that. Hi, everyone on the phone or on our webinar this afternoon. We both want to thank you for taking time out of your busy days. We know you have a lot on your plates, and so we want to thank you for taking time to listen to our presentation, which is Inbound and Outbound. Activate your dual-powered marketing, where we're going to be taking a look at how to effectively integrate both inbound and outbound strategies into your marketing plan. This is one of my favorite topics because here at Acton, we frequently get asked, which method is better, inbound or outbound. But the reality is it really shouldn't be an either-or decision, especially in today's digital marketing world. You really need to be able to embrace both strategies in order to see the return on the marketing campaigns that you're running. So I've got quite a bit of content to cover today, so I'm going to jump right into our agenda. What I'll do is I'm going to start by defining each strategy, which I do realize most of you will probably be fairly familiar with. I'll highlight some of the major characteristics of how these definitions, specifically outbound, has changed as digital marketing has evolved into one of our leading channels for connecting with customers and prospects. I'll also take some time to look at some of the tactics and best practices associated with each strategy. I'll give you some tips for how to integrate both strategies into your marketing plan. And lastly, I'll talk about providing a framework for how to evaluate and measure the success of all of your hard efforts. So, what is inbound marketing? The way we define inbound is activities that are designed to attract the attention of customers and prospects with the purpose of giving them a reason to come to you. So if you look at this in the context of comparing inbound and outbound, inbound is commonly referred to as pull marketing and outbound as push marketing, because you're using a number of tactics and great content to pull the attention of your prospects to your brand. You are essentially giving your prospects the freedom to determine their own path to purchase, but you're leaving breadcrumbs or little markers along the way that allow them to come and find you. While many businesses use inbound to build brands and improve customer retention, it's typically used most effectively as a top of funnel tactic. And it's no wonder that truly inbound is one of the hottest trends in business today. It's a great concept. You're creating a lot of value around your brand, and you're compelling customers to come to you. According to a stat by the Earnest Agency, 9 out of 10 buyers say that when they're ready to buy, they'll end up coming to find you. So how will they find you? You're probably wondering. Well, you can effectively implement an inbound strategy a number of ways, but some of the most effective tools in an inbound strategy are blogging, SEO, social media, content marketing, and review or referral sites. Now, I want you to notice that all of these tactics or tools offer a certain level of autonomy that allow prospects to find information on their own. And if executed properly, all of these tools will help draw attention to your company. And a little later in the presentation, I'll dive deeper into the best practices for some of these tactics. Now, whether you're new to inbound or are just looking for ways to improve, most businesses today see the opportunity in inbound marketing as the role it plays in relation to outbound marketing. Outbound in the past has always been about pushing your message to mass audiences. The best way, I usually like to talk about this is it's sort of this one-size-fits-all approach that really represents, that Mad Men era of marketing. You spent enormous amounts of money on one campaign message and you pushed it to as many people as you could. And, you're just basically trying to get that most exposure as possible. It's even been referred to as interruption marketing because the message didn't have any element of personalization or relevance to your prospects. And some of the tactics, like the dreaded cold calling, interrupted the lives of everybody you were reaching out to. Unfortunately, this has given outbound marketing a bad reputation, but with the infusion of technology, the tactics for this strategy have evolved, and so has the actual definition of outbound marketing. So today, if you look at a more modern definition, we can define it as a push of relevant messaging to known personas that address their pain points and interests so you stay top of mind in the decision-making process. Using behavior profiling and activity history, marketers today, more so than ever, have the ability to create personalized messages with relevant information, and they can reach their prospects on a much more personal level. So when I go through this, I really like to give a little context, and I'm going to use email as an example here. And I'm sure we can all relate to this. We all get tons of emails, and I know when I get something in my inbox, there's nothing more frustrating than receiving an email that doesn't apply at all to me. It's clogging up my inbox, it sucks up precious seconds of my day, having to delete it, I'm frustrated. But when I get an email, when it's sending me something that is relevant and timely and interesting, it's a completely different story. So, for example, if I download a white paper on a website and I receive an email from that organization, thanking me for the download and suggesting other pieces of content to relate to what I've just downloaded, I'm much more likely to view that additional content than I would if I just got some blanketed promo message for content that has nothing to do with my interests. So obviously we just touched on one of the outbound tools, email, and email is by far one of the most effective tools for achieving ROI and for connecting with your prospects on a more personal and customized level. But there's also some other digital outbound tactics, such as retargeting ads, video, account-based marketing, and mobile. as well as some of the non-digital tactics that have been around for a long time, such as direct mail, television, radio, and phone. Once again, as I mentioned with the inbound tactics, we'll cover these tools in a bit more detail later, but more specifically, we'll really dive into the digital tactics and how they can be used to connect with your prospects using timely and relevant information. Now, before we go any further, I want to provide a little bit more context surrounding what I call this new buyer's journey. We're seeing these shifts and how we define inbound and outbound marketing and the tactics and tools associated with each method because there has been a shift in this buyer's journey. Technology has evolved and it's only going to continue to do so. So for our buyers, access to information is unlimited and their access to choice is also unlimited. In the past, it really was sales that was in that driver's seat. But now it's the prospects that are in the driver's seat and they're directing their own buying journey. It's no longer about saturating the market, it's about intelligent targeting. And it's about being able to understand where your buyers are on their journey so that you can influence their next steps in hopes of becoming one of the choices that they in turn consider. So yeah, you might look at it and say, oh, consumers are in control, but really that's okay because guess what? Now the consumers are doing a lot of the legwork for you and you don't need to canvas the whole entire universe anymore. You just need to be able to track where customers are in their buyer journey and be prepared to respond when necessary. So I have a couple of stats here to support the shift that we're seeing. According to the Demand Gen report, 78% of consumers start the buying process with a web search. 50% turn to social media and peer reviews to influence their buying decisions. These directly relate to these first two stages that you'll see here in the buying journey, attract and capture. And this is what inbound marketing is at its core. You're generating awareness of your product or service and you're using the momentum of that awareness to capture the prospect's attention and information to turn them into known contacts. And even in these first two stages, modern marketers are using outbound marketing tactics intelligently to get their messages in front of the right buyer with the right content. Notice I'm emphasizing the right buyer with the right content. So really paying attention to where they're at in their journey and personalizing that message. I love showing, this view of the buyer's journey because it really helps illustrate the point on why you should not choose inbound or outbound marketing strategies. Building a relationship with customers needs to be a two-way street. It should incorporate both the push and pull tactics. So imagine, a single guy entering the dating scene, just waiting at the bar for the perfect partner to show up. He's in the right place, he looks great, he's attractive. There's a chance the perfect partner will materialize in the bar seat next to him, but this single guy has a much better chance of starting a healthy relationship if they're actively seeking out cool people on dating sites and sending messages and socializing and introducing themselves. Two ways of communication equals twice the opportunity. This is especially true in the later parts of the relationship. Going back to that same type of, dating example, imagine building a relationship where one partner was always the one to call or text first and the other one just waited to be contacted. It's not necessarily the best approach. To effectively market to your prospects throughout their journey, you have to adopt outbound strategies to help move those prospects through to the nurture, convert, and expand stages. This is really where all of those outbound tactics are going to come to life. And outbound supports the concept of keeping you top of mind throughout the journey, and you'll probably amass a very top-heavy funnel if you're focusing on inbound alone and don't have an outbound strategy to help your prospects through that journey. 50% of leads are qualified, but they are not yet ready to buy. And companies that excel at lead nurturing generate 50% more sales-ready leads at a 33% lower cost, according to Forrester research. I think that's pretty powerful. So you can see that just because you've attracted new prospects doesn't mean they're ready to buy. You're going to have to nurture them with outbound strategies in order to really see the return from your inbound tactics. They really go together. So now that we've illustrated the value of using this dual-powered marketing strategy approach, I want to dive into the specific tactics for each strategy. So let's start with blogging. So blogging is a proven technique. It helps attract visitors to your website. It allows you to build a relationship. And we all know that a well-written, informative blog offers a variety of benefits to your inbound strategy. But most importantly, you can see here on the screen, it's going to help you do a couple of things. It's going to establish your company as knowledgeable and helpful, and someone a prospect would feel secure about engaging with in a business relationship. Blogging is also going to help you improve your organic search results, especially when you're able to maintain a frequent and steady cadence of posts. Now, I'm not going to tell you, how often that frequency should be, but the most important part, I think, is to set a cadence and follow it. And lastly, it's going to help you stimulate social sharing, which is going to obviously spread your knowledge and put you in front of new prospects. So with all of that being said, it's no surprise that according to Marketing Sherpa, 81% of marketers view blogs as an effective marketing tool. Now, we can talk about benefits all day, but I also want to present some of the challenges as well. It can be really hard to keep up with that relentless need for fresh, high quality material, especially if you're relying on volunteers within your company to provide those articles and that good content. So a good tip is to assign job responsibility to an employee for blog strategy and content development, and even develop a calendar. If you have holes in your blogging schedule, don't be afraid to use freelance writers to help fill those gaps. And just here real quick, I won't go through each one in great deal, but these are tips for better blogging. So like I just mentioned, creating an editorial calendar. This really is going to help you plan out that content around the rest of your marketing communications, like webinars and trade shows and such. You want to include social sharing buttons. This is super important when it comes to an inbound strategy because it's going to help your posts reach a larger audience because you're encouraging your readers to pass along that content to others. You want to make sure that you're updating the blog at least weekly. It does seem tedious, I'm sure, but it is going to help you reach optimal organic search results, and it's going to provide a huge boost, if I could talk here, a huge boost to your SEO strategy. As I mentioned before, keeping a consistent blog schedule, there's not, one way that it has to be done, but you want to give your prospects a reason to come back to you, and you can't do that if there's no content and they have dead airwaves. You want it to be consistent so your readers have good expectations and they can help, they can basically build trust with your brand. 5, use keywords that match your blog copy. Probably pretty self-explanatory. You want to make sure that the keywords you're targeting for the post actually relate to the content. The volume of traffic to your blog is not going to be very useful if your readers' expectations are not met and they don't find it relevant. You want to make your content valuable to your reader. You want to offer as much useful and educational information as possible. And you also want to really try to avoid any self-promotion. Of course, there's exceptions to this rule. If you have a new product release or maybe a lot of, awesome PR out there, but you want to, try to not make it a heavy sales pitch. And last but not least, always make sure that you have a call to action. This is a subtle way to help you actually generate some leads from the blog. All right, and now I want to move on and look at SEO. So the key to success in online marketing at its most basic form is to capture the attention of the masses that rely on organic search. So you want to make your content the best answer when people are searching for information to an issue or problem that your product or service helps solve. These days, I would say quality is everything. I think the days are gone when you just stuff your content with keywords and tricks intended to fool the search engines. Google's getting smarter. Their algorithms have changed, and as a result, there is now less of an emphasis on mastering that traditional trick of the SEO world, and more emphasis than ever before on the simple fundamentals of good writing. This means that you can get further with search simply by writing with clarity and elegance. So I think the thing to remember here, it's all about relevance and quality now over quantity. You want to build a robust website which serves educational content, that answers questions and serves the needs of your prospects. And like I said, the golden rule for SEO as it stands today is to write for people and not for the search engines. So here we are with a few other tips that'll help optimize your website for search. Number 1, know your audience and know the language that they use. You want to be able to use words and phrases that your audience uses throughout all of the content that you have on your pages. So remember, your audience is the one entering the question in the search engine. So really try to put yourself in their shoes, and ask yourself, how would I search for a solution to this? Ask other people kind of like how they would phrase it, just to get, the best opinions and getting it out there. Tip number 2, write better content. This is going to keep visitors on your page longer, and the search engines are going to recognize that. Tip number 3, include title tags. Write your title tags to indicate exactly what's on the page. Use keywords early in the title, and keep the tag between 8 and 55 characters, and that is including spaces. 4, use responsive design. I really cannot stress the importance of this enough. According to eMarketer, tablets and smartphones are driving 39% of paid search clicks in North America. So you're really missing out on traffic if you're not optimizing your site for multiple screen sizes. And finally, number 5, set a canonical URL. This is really going to help reduce any issues you have with duplicate content. All right, up next, social media. So consumers and businesses alike are using social media to connect with brands, research solutions, and solve their customer service problems. According to Forrester's Social Technographics report, 100% of business decision makers are using social media for work purposes. That's pretty staggering. So obviously, an active presence on social media is truly mandatory for most companies today. But you might be asking yourself, where do you begin? You need to start by identifying the networks where your customers expect to find you. So if you're in the B2B world, this is certainly LinkedIn and possibly Twitter or Facebook. If you're selling to consumers, you should begin with Facebook and consider Twitter or Pinterest. Then you're going to need to develop that compelling content. People are not going to pay attention to you on social media unless you have something interesting to tell them. It's kind of the same thing even in our personal lives. Like, which friends of yours are you actually paying attention to? You need to develop a content strategy before you can begin a true social media program. You can easily pull content from your blogs and white papers and ebooks. You can also use customer reviews, quotes from your executives or team members, and any links to helpful resources that are out there, even your competitors, that are going to help your audience find answers. And one of the more obvious uses that I would say for social media is for PR purposes. So, for example, using social to promote a live event or trade show, or announcing a product launch, or even a new hire for your company. We could probably go on and on about this topic, but the point here is that you're providing a method for your prospects to connect with you and build trust. So just because you're posting on social channels and checking that box, you don't want to assume that people are always going to be engaging with your posts. So you really want to think about a few things here. One, making sure that you're developing a tone that's familiar and comfortable with the audience, and also represents the style and culture of your company. So, it's a medium for engagement, so you really want to make sure that you're speaking the right language. My tip number 2 is to post questions that stimulate engagement and responses. This is going to prompt sharing. 3, you want to maintain a steady cadence of posts. That can be daily, it could be weekly, it could be monthly. You just don't want to go hot or cold. Try to, set an expectation and keep with that. Tip number 4 is, use multimedia. This is going to keep your posts, stimulating by providing a variety of, different things, whether that's images, videos, texts, infographics. And lastly, push the envelope. Don't be afraid. Push it a little. Obviously keep in mind whatever industry you're in, but social networks are expected to be kind of that freewheeling environment. So definitely feel free to try things that are, out of the ordinary. So now I'm going to move on to the last inbound tactic that we're going to cover today, content marketing. So customer education has long been, I would say, an effective sales and marketing approach, but now buyers are researching products and solutions online well in advance of directly engaging with sellers. So marketers are having to provide plenty of information both online and off to inform buyers and to gain their trust so that they're staying top of mind when they're finally in that ready to buy stage. Once again, our friends at the Earnest Agency say that 78% of buyers are hungry for information around their business challenges, and it's our job to provide that. And by creating content that helps answer their questions, you can move your prospects closer to becoming customers. Content can come in a variety of forms, videos and images, ebooks, emails, white papers, web pages. But the key characteristic here is that it's going to serve some business purpose through education and information versus persuasion. Once again, you want to avoid that salesy pitch at all costs. Now, despite the value of content marketing, it's still a relatively hard strategy for marketers to adapt and master. The Content Marketing Institute shows that while most marketers are using content marketing tactics, few believe that they're actually using it well. So, to help you out, what do you know? I've got a few more quick tips for you. One is to analyze your customer's buying process. So earlier we talked about those 5 stages. If you remember, they were attract, capture, nurture, convert, and expand. And it's really important to consider each of these stages in your content plan because you need to make sure you have content that speaks to each of your personas throughout the different stages of their buying journey. Which brings me to tip number 2. Understand and segment your audience. Or this can be commonly referred to as developing buyer personas. This is an effective way to uncover who your target customers are, which helps identify what topics your content should be covering. Tip 3, identify the right content formula. To do this, you need to make sure that your content is doing different things at the different stages of the buyer's journey. So, for example, going back to those stages, in the attract stage, your content needs to generate interest in the company, and you want to be establishing yourself as a thought leader. In capture, you're going to want to stimulate purchase consideration and position your company as a provider they would want to work with. In nurture, you're going to want to continue to provide informative content that helps educate how you can solve your persona's particular pain points. In convert, you want to provide content that shows a great customer experience. Items such as like a testimonial or a review, those would be great options here. And in expand, you're moving to a customer marketing mode, and you're trying to engage that customer as a brand advocate. And you want to educate them on how to use your product to its full potential. Now, lastly, tip number 4 conveniently coincides with the rule of 4. The rule of 4 states that any piece of content can be repurposed up to 4 times. So, for example, we could use this webinar and turn it into an ebook, and maybe even eventually a blog post, and then even an infographic. So different people, you have to remember, consume content in different ways. So you can really extend the life of the assets you're creating by presenting them in different formats. And you're also making your job easier as well. Less content to create, just repurposing it. All right, so now let's talk about, integrating inbound with outbound. After you captured your prospect's attention, the landing page is where everything comes together and your inbound efforts really pay off. Your landing page is going to serve as that bridge between the two. And because driving your prospects just to your website really isn't enough. You have to give them a reason and an opportunity to engage with you on an ongoing basis. So you want to make sure that your landing pages are optimized for conversions so you can capture their information and begin engaging with them with outbound tactics. So here on the screen, you can see I have an example here of an act-on landing page, of an act-on landing page, which invites prospects to take a video tour of our platform. So a few things to note here. Every inbound call to action should have a dedicated landing page. This includes SEO, blog, social promotion, basically anywhere you request a click or a visit to our particular page. So if you have a lot of ebooks, there should be a landing page for each ebook that you're offering. You also want to make sure that your landing pages have forms so you can capture their information. And the length of those forms really are going to vary on the type of call to action that you're requesting. You want to make sure that your prospects are not abandoning those forms. So a good example of this is, if you're asking someone to sign up for a newsletter versus asking someone to sign up for a webinar like today. For a newsletter, you really just need, a prospect's email address. So you want to try to keep, the fields on that form as minimal as possible. But with a webinar, you can get away with asking for a little bit more information, especially if it pertains to the webinar topic. So, an example of that would be if you're promoting a webinar on the benefits of integrating, say, a technology platform to your CRM system. Really, a great question to ask would be, what CRM are they using? And that could be something that would just seem completely normal in that form, in that registration process. Another thing you can consider with your forms is what we call A/B testing, just to see, how that you can help improve and optimize your conversions. This is going to help you determine if there's some optimal headlines that are obviously getting better response, if different copy or layout or colors or images are performing better. So now I want to move on to the digital tactics for outbound. And I'll touch briefly on all of them, but I really want to focus on the benefits of email and nurturing specifically. So judging by the size of, well, I guess I should only speak for myself, but my inbox, and I'm guessing yours too, it's easy to think of email as spam. But email is still truly a marketing powerhouse. It's one of the most effective methods of communication in terms of return on investment. And according to the Economist Intelligence Unit, email is ranked #1 as the preferred method of communication by consumers. Email is one of the major areas that we're seeing improvement in the shift from the old Canvas, the universe approach, if you remember when we were talking about those outbound tactics, to this new concept of continuing engagement with relevant information to help keep you top of mind in that consideration process. The issue here is competing for sustained attention in our cluttered inboxes. So what I want to focus on today are two of the best methods for email marketing, and that's behavior-triggered emails and automated programs or lead nurturing. So what is a behavior-triggered email? A trigger email is essentially an email that is triggered by an action or even a lack of action. Basically, you're triggering an email to be sent to one person based on something that they've done or haven't done. Did they visit a key page of your website? Did they abandon their shopping cart? Or have they been, viewing the same page, day or weeks on end? You just have to remember that every business is different. So it's important for you to look at how your audience is different and how your prospects explore products. So to help you get started, you should look at where your prospects are self-identifying interest and product needs. Is it a specific topic they keep viewing in different formats? Is it a video that they've been coming back to? You want to then identify where along the process they have to make a decision to proceed or not proceed onto the next phase of their buying journey. Sometimes it might be as simple as just, a shopping cart or a checkout process. But for B2B, of course, it can be a little bit more complex. It might be, when they're on a form to set an appointment with a sales rep or to view a demo, or it might be, when they're viewing a pricing page or something like that. You just have to think through it. So when they have to make a decision in their purchase journey, to interact or not to interact. And then once you've defined those areas, you can create those messages that relate directly to your prospect's interests and trigger the emails for the exact moment they've taken the actions you've identified as the trigger. And the beauty of this is you're using their digital body language as the basis for forming the messaging to prompt action. So here you can also see, again, we've got an example of this that we use at Acton. We have a list of prospects that we're actively watching, and we're trying to get them to engage. So we're watching that list, and anytime anyone on the list visits a key page on our website, the message is triggered. And it's a very simple message. It's just saying like, hey, you looked at our website, and you should take a deeper look. And so here's a quick video tour of our platform. And this honestly has been really successful for us with over a 50% open rate. And, that's really not surprising when you look to, stats from, organizations like eMarketer, where it says, trigger emails statistically have higher open rates and higher click-through rates than traditional one-off email messages, because you're triggering that message when that person is actively engaged. So the next thing in regards to email is lead nurturing. So I want to start by defining why you would need a lead nurturing program, which is essentially a series of emails that are triggered at specific points in time. According to Gleanster research, 50% of leads are qualified but are not yet ready to buy. So these are people that are qualified and will most likely make a purchase, but at the time they come in, they're not yet ready to buy. So how do you stay in touch with them? So lead nurturing is a way that you can gradually warm those leads up over time. And if you're in the B2B space, this is something that is particularly relevant because if you have a longer sales cycle, that number of times you're going to have to touch them might be even higher. Because when a lead comes in and they aren't ready to buy, you have to remember doesn't mean they're not ever going to buy. You don't want to ignore them. You want to nurture them, warm them up. You want to keep continuing to communicate with them so you're staying top of mind. So when they are ready, they immediately think of you. When you're doing lead nurturing, I've said this a few times, it's not about making that hard sell. That's going to, of course, come later once they're qualified and warmed up. Nurturing is about educating and responding to their needs and building trust through the series of emails that you're providing. You're sending highly targeted messages based on different layers of data that you're collecting. It might be segmenting on buyer personas or the different stages that they're in their purchasing journey. And there are 3 distinct layers of data for personas that you probably might be familiar with, demographics and firmographics, psychographics, and behavioral data. So for those of you that might not be familiar, demographics is the data, most of us already have, like location, name, job, title. Firmographics relates to things like, company size and revenue. With the psychographic layer, we're looking at interests and pain points, basically things that address their needs. And the last layer, that behavior data, that's really what's going to make your nurturing programs interesting. This is everything from website clicks to, previous email interactions, video views, basically any interaction they've taken with your brand, and it's then been attached to their profile. So you can segment and create specific nurturing paths that are going to be relevant and timely for each of your segments. The best advice I could give you for lead nurturing is to map it out. Even if it's just a quick whiteboarding session, map it out so you can visualize the paths that your prospects could take. On screen here is a sample of, a sample lead nurturing program. And it really makes it much easier to determine what your decision steps should be and how these leads will reach sales once they've been warmed up and reach a specific score threshold that you've designated as that tipping point for encouraging sales that they are ready for contact. All right, our next outbound tactic I'll touch on is retargeting. Retargeting is the process of cooking your prospects and then using a retargeting network to serve your ads to prospects on the sites they're visiting, even websites that are not your own and can even be completely unrelated in terms of topic. I'm sure many of us have already experienced this firsthand. The benefits of this are pretty fantastic because you can achieve a higher ROI than with regular website ads. And that's because you're controlling who you want to see your ads. So you can target your known prospects or even go so far as to serve ads to anyone who has visited a particular page on your site. And the reason the engagement is higher is because it is relevant. Even if your prospects know who you are, it is usually going to take multiple exposures to move a prospect closer to the purchasing action, and retargeting allows you to do just that. It gives you great additional exposure. Real quick here, I wanted to show you an example of some retargeting that we've actually done in the past using a platform called Listen Loop. It actually allows you to mirror your ad messaging to the specific stage and message that they are receiving from your nurture programs. So this is a perfect example, I would say, of a cross-channel and integrated marketing approach, because once everything is set up, as your prospects progress through that nurturing path that they're on, the messaging and creative in your retargeting ads will automatically match that of the emails that they're receiving, which of course is a great way to increase engagement and keep your messaging consistent for your prospects. All right, we are almost done here. Video marketing. Video marketing, highly versatile because it can be used in both inbound and outbound strategies. It's gaining popularity. It's become an integral part of some organizations' content marketing plans. But today I really want to just talk about how it can be used in your outbound strategy to help you increase your engagement with your prospects. Video marketing at its core is designed to help increase education about your product or service and promote your brand, which is very similar to the goals of outbound marketing. You want to educate and engage known prospects with relevant information so they're more likely to consider you in their decision-making process. With technology today, you can set up alerts so your sales team is aware when one of their prospects has watched a video, and you even can tell how much of that video has been viewed, so sales has a better understanding of how to start their conversation. Many video hosting platforms integrate with marketing automation, which is what we do, so all of that video activity becomes something you can factor in to your segmentation. You can also use video to increase engagement with other pieces of content using call to action pop-ups in relevant sections of your videos. An example of this is Outbound is using a customer testimonial video in a nurture program for prospects that are moving from the nurture to convert stage of their buying journey. And in our video, the customer is explaining how much they love our A/B testing feature. So we can set up a call to action that allows the prospect to download an ebook on how to conduct an A/B test while they're viewing that video. So now video has become another channel that you can use to not only educate about your product or service, but also as another method to promote other pieces of content to stimulate engagement. The last outbound tactic we're going to briefly cover is account-based marketing, which really brings together all of the best practices we've covered today. Account-based marketing is a strategic approach to engaging companies who are similar to some of your top-tier customers. So we've talked about buyer personas quite a bit, and it's similar to that, but instead of focusing on individuals within a company, you're developing personas for companies to create targeted lists of named accounts. So to do this, you're going to look for commonalities like employee size, geographical location, revenue, industry, or even competitors to your current customers, and identify a list of companies that fit the criteria you've selected. Then once you have that targeted account list, you can begin focusing all of your marketing activities on engaging these named accounts using all the tactics and tools we've already discussed today. And if you have the luxury of using third parties to help with lead generation, you can even provide these lists to your vendors or partners so they can begin serving your content to these accounts as well, which will, of course, expand your reach. So now that we've covered all of these tactics for inbound and outbound, how are you going to integrate the two strategies? The secret is really just planning across the customer experience. You want to build bridges across the media functions and construct your marketing plan as a whole, considering how to move the customer along his or her buying process. So a couple of just tips to consider. Develop that cohesive messaging strategy. You want to make sure that your messaging retains your brand voice throughout the entire journey, and make sure that the topics and pain points you're addressing are truly relevant. You want to track key metrics across the journey. You need to consider metrics like cost per lead, then lead to sales or lead to opportunity conversion rates, and connect your marketing performance to sales. Planning out your content. I know it probably sound like a broken record. I feel like I've said that a few times. Content assets are used to attract prospects to your brand, and they make a compelling offer to stimulate response in outbound strategies. Don't forget to make sure that your sales team has access to your content so that your messaging is consistent and they can provide relevant content for some of the discussions they are having with prospects. Tip number 4, make sure you are considering the source and activity from inbound leads before you are transitioning into outbound tactics. And tip 5, develop an integrated mindset. There shouldn't be any walls between inbound and outbound. They both contribute to the opportunity to attract, convert, and expand customer relationships. So I know I've done a ton of talking today, and we've covered a lot of information, and I want to just wrap up with a quick thing on measuring success of all of the efforts, because we all know that all of these inbound and outbound tactics, they don't just happen on their own. So the best place to start when defining your metrics for success is to set clear goals for what it is you want to do. Are you trying to generate leads? Do you want to build awareness? You should clearly define what your primary goal is and then map your objectives to the different stages in your buyer's journey, as I've illustrated here on the screen. You can notice how the different objectives become more detailed and specific to the particular stage of the buyer's journey. And you're more likely to focus on site visitors and traffic in the earlier stages of the funnel from inbound tactics, and then conversions and engagement later from outbound efforts. Now, once you've identified these goals, you need to include a time period for when they should be set and met. And then you want to share these goals and timelines with your entire team so everyone is in the loop on and understands and knows what their objectives are and how they can contribute to the overall strategy. Phew, that was a lot. And I think we are just right about at our end time, but I do want to open it up for a couple questions.